The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you today by Draft. Looking for the best fantasy sports site on the planet? Sign up with Draft today. For a limited time only, our listeners will receive $3 matching their first deposit of at least $10. Use promo code DTR or visit draft.com/DTR to sign up now. Draft. Fantasy for the people. Now enjoy the show.
Caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Wood, touchdown. LA! Dog goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge, and Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride. Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Leto got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did!
Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA! Picked off by John Johnson. Well, it's Dante Fowler who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 263. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is Alexis Kraft. And we've been able to kind of settle on this loss, from the Ravens. The Rams had a brutal loss, but we've been able to settle down on it. And I think we'll be able to actually talk more about football and less about how disappointed we are in this team. So looking forward to that. Before we get started, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like it, go tell somebody, DTR, Downtown Rams, whatever. We've been getting a lot of new listeners. A lot of people have been reaching out, so we appreciate that. All right, Alexis. So, we already had, kind of like how the Rams have, even if they win or they lose, you get 24 hours to kind of take it all in, enjoy it, or, kind of sulk on it. And then you kind of move on. And, it's later on in the week. It's now Saturday. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and all of that. But it's later on in the week now. So, it's Saturday. Tomorrow's the game. What are your thoughts coming into this game now that we've been able to kind of digest everything?
Well, I think we just need to play different than we played against Baltimore. Also, we are playing the Arizona Cardinals. But, the thing is about this team, guys, the Arizona Cardinals, is they're not really a good team, but they do have some good players. And this is a game that I do think if we don't go into this game prepared and ready for it completely and kind of just looking ready and all that good stuff, I don't think that we'll win. You're really not going to win any game in the NFL if you aren't properly prepared. So I hope that the Rams still prepared for the game and did all the stuff that they need to do, because this Arizona Cardinals team is kind of intriguing because, like I said, they're not really a good team, but they do have some good players. They've got their quarterback, Kyler Murray, who actually I think is listed as questionable right now, but they do expect him to play. And listen, Kyler is not Lamar Jackson by any means, but he's mobile. He can run. He makes things happen. And that's something to look out for this game. Listen, they don't have a good offensive line in Arizona. They have I would even venture to say, maybe mediocre to bad offensive line. Kyler Murray has basically been running for his life this whole season. So I think that, if the Rams can capitalize on that and do what we need to do in offense, I think that we should win this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, with the Kyler Murray's offensive line, just going through, DJ Humphries is kind of, disappointing, somebody that they really like coming out of Florida. They moved from right tackle to left tackle, and I don't think he ever fully developed as right tackle, and then they kind of threw him over at the hardest position to play, protecting the quarterback's blind side, so I think he struggled. Justin Pugh has not been the same since leaving the Giants. He's still solid, but I wouldn't say he's great. AQ Shipley, I think, is one of the worst centers in the league. J.R. Sweezy is one of the worst right guards in the league, and Justin Murray is kind of filling in at right tackle. Our guy Joshua Miles, who we interviewed during the pre-draft process, He is actually the backup tackle, so he might get in on this one. Because I mean, I would probably bench Justin Murray. I mean, I just don't really think he's all that great as well. But I do like, some of what they have on offense. First off, Kyler Murray's already the second best quarterback in the NFC West. He's having a really good year, despite the fact he's suffered with drops. He's suffered with, somebody like Larry Fitzgerald, who, in my opinion, has not played up to par. This year, I know he's getting up there in age, but I would have expected more. And the total question mark of a backfield. I mean, David Johnson, they paid David Johnson. He's struggled to stay healthy all year. Chase Edmonds had that one really good game, but really hasn't done anything. And they even went out and made a trade for Kenyon Drake. So, some questionable, backfield play there. Consistency is lacking. But they did draft Andy Isabella. They drafted the guy that I really believe is going to be something special in Hakeem Butler, but he broke his hand earlier in the preseason, so we didn't get a chance to see him. So it's really been Larry Fitzgerald, Damiere Byrd, Trent Sherfield, Andy Isabella, obviously Christian Kirk, but he's been battling some injuries all year, and Keyshawn Johnson, as well as Farrell Cooper, former Ram. So this offense, it has its strengths, it has its weaknesses. I think if Kyler has no time to throw, this could be a long game, because I think the Rams are going to look at what they did against Lamar Jackson, realize you have to keep it in front of you if you're going up against a running quarterback. And that's simply what I expect them to do with Kyler Murray. I think that they are going to keep Kyler Murray in the pocket and, force him to beat you with his arm. And I think he can 100% do that. He's fully capable of it. He's played some really good games this year. I think this team's better than their record. But at the same time, I do think this is still a really, really good Rams defense that is pissed off, and they know that they're not as bad as the Ravens made them look out to be. So I think that's definitely interesting. But looking over at the defensive side of the ball, I think they have some really talented key pieces there. Obviously, the main one, Chandler Jones, who pretty sure he led the league in sacks last year. Could be wrong on that one. Or no, he didn't, because it was Aaron Donald, but the year prior. Hassan Reddick is somebody I like a lot. Obviously, people would say Patrick Peterson. I would just say this right now. I've watched a lot of Cardinals games this year, and I'll say Patrick Peterson's kind of been a liability in coverage. So I do expect, Cooper Kupp, if he lines up with Patrick Peterson, to kind of, eat him alive all game long. Byron Murphy, the rookie out of Washington, 33rd overall pick. The one that had a shock that he hadn't already been picked yet. He is having a really good season, as well as Budda Baker. Former Ram corner Kevin Peterson is going to play the Rams for the first time since being cut. Tremaine Brock is still out there, and Jalen Thompson, their 5th round pick out of the supplementary draft. I definitely like him a lot. So I think they have some pieces there. Terrell Suggs is the guy that they got in the offseason as well. Really up front, I don't think that they're going to be capable of stopping the run. So I think you should see a lot of heavy dose of Todd Gurley, Malcolm Brown, and Darrell Henderson. As long as the Rams can do that, I think they definitely have a chance to keep this game close.
Yeah, and I think that you said it best when you said that this team is better than their record, because I think that's true. They don't have a good record, but this team does have a lot of talented pieces, and they have people who are playing well. Just for whatever reason, it hasn't translated into the win column. But like I said, I do think the Rams need to prepare for this game, because it is a game, obviously, that they can lose if they don't. Any team can win any game in the NFL or lose any game in the NFL based on preparation, unless you just have a super, super talented team. So I do think that Kyler Murray is going to be maybe a little bit of a challenge for the Rams, because like I said, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he is kind of in that same vein. And we saw how the Rams did with that. So that kind of worries me a little bit. But like I said, his offensive line is just not been good. I do think that the Rams can take advantage of that. And then you talked about their defense. They do have some, good guys on defense as well. And especially with the way that our offense has been playing, I think they really need to step it up. I think they just need to do their thing, because kind of what you and I have been talking about is this Rams team. We have a lot of talent. I mean, we are more talented than the Arizona Cardinals. However, it's just translating that talent into the win column, which is just something we've been struggling with and just making a lot of stupid mistakes. So I think that if the Rams can recover from last week, put the Baltimore game behind them, go into this Arizona game as somewhat of a fresh start, I do think that they should win this game. I would say Jared Goff is going to have all eyes on him because he's kind of been the center of controversy lately, just with the way that he's been playing, especially after he got all this money and people are not happy. So I'm sure that he knows that. I just hope that he goes into this game kind of with a clear head. Just focuses on the little things, because it's kind of been the thing that we've been saying about Jared Goff this season, is just kind of making those stupid decisions and throwing at guys' feet or throwing to a receiver that isn't there. Just like a lot of mental mistakes. I think if he can clean that up, he'll be fine against this Arizona team. So I hope that he does that. I also hope that we utilize the run game, kind of as you said, because that's something that we've kind of been talking about all season as well. So I do hope that Todd Gurley has a big game. I think that he possibly could, and like you said, other running backs that we have. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup because I do see it going one of two ways. I think it's either going to be a big blowout by the Rams or a big blowout by the Cardinals. And I know that's kind of bold, but I think one team is going to capitalize and the other is going to suffer. I don't really see it being a close game just because of the way that both of these teams have been playing all season. So I hope that the Rams can blow out the Cardinals. I think if they can expose their weaknesses and contain the guys that they need to contain, I think they can do it. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I forgot to mention Jordan Hicks, who is leading the league in tackles, I believe, until the Thanksgiving games he was anyway. He's their middle linebacker. He's having a really good year. But, with the Rams, they're going to be without Gerald Everett. And I think that's really interesting because this is a huge opportunity for Tyler Higbee and Johnny Munt to get going. Jared Goff needs to use more of the tight ends. The problem is, in the game plan, there's been a lot of chipping going on for the tight ends to chip the edge rusher. It didn't really happen against the Ravens, but they had to do it against the Bears. So the tight ends haven't really been active in that regard. In this game, though, here's the thing. You went up against the Ravens, and I think I've said this pretty much since it happened. It's the only silver lining. The Ravens are the best team in football. So what ended up happening is that the Rams had opportunities. Their offense was moving the football, and they settled for field goals early on. They got behind, and then they were, at that point, it was just overwhelming, right? Keeping the defense, you keep putting the defense back on the field. They got tired out. They were on the field for 40 minutes of the 60-minute football game. Yes, obviously the score's not going to look good because they're just burned out. But I think that was the silver lining there, is that, they got behind early, but they still showed that they could move the football. There were plenty of opportunities they had, and they screwed up against a really good Baltimore Ravens defense. And I feel like the Cardinals are, an easier defense. I don't want to sleep on the Cardinals because I think the Cardinals could beat anyone in this league. I think they could take down literally anyone. They could also lose to anyone. They're the team. They started off the year, they were getting blown out on the road against Detroit. And really what, solidified them as kind of like a spoiler team this season is how they basically tied the Lions in that game, because that ultimately changed the course of how we looked at the Cardinals. They were down for the count, and Kyler Murray led them back and ended up tying the ball game, and it ended up being a tie. So it's an ugly looking record, but that's, that was the reason. So I think Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, you could not be playing them at a worse time, in my opinion. I think right now you've seen all of the rookie jitters go away. And I think Kyler Murray is really settling in his rookie year, the latter portion of his rookie year. And I think, Cliff Kingsbury too is, starting to really develop as a play caller and has, showed a lot of potential, in my opinion. Obviously just coming into the position, but just what he's done this year. So again, the Cardinals, they're in just about every game. They fought the Ravens tough. They lost by a touchdown. They fought the 49ers tough back-to-back, appearances against them. Really the only game that they've absolutely gotten decimated in was against the Saints. And that game could have been a lot worse. So, I don't think the Cardinals are that bad at all. And I think next year, you give them some picks this year and what they have, the Cardinals are going to be a team to look out for. But right now, the way it is, I think, Kyler Murray's more like Russell Wilson than he is like, Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick. And for that reason, I think it helps the Rams. I think the Rams struggle with like flat out like quarterbacks that can run. And, I think Kyler runs, but he also prefers to run more strategically like Russell Wilson than Lamar Jackson, who when he gets out in the open field, he wants to take it for 6. Russell Wilson's looking to slide and set his team up or create passes down the field. So I think this is a huge opportunity for the Rams. I don't know if anybody has really, fooled around with the playoff machine. I know a lot of people have just assumed the Rams are out of the playoffs. They're really not. I know I said that, during the podcast that we did. It was honestly just a bad time because, you just saw your team get, absolutely decimated at home on Monday Night Football. So the entire world saw that. And I think it was almost for sure like you would just eliminate them from the playoffs. But the craziest thing is the 49ers can literally win against the Falcons. And if they lose the rest of their games, which, before you laugh at me, the rest of their games are not easy. The Ravens this week in Baltimore, the Saints in New Orleans. If the Rams get it together, that's not an easy game. And then they basically finish the season against Seattle. So, I think they could 100% go 1-4 the rest of the way. And I do kind of see that happening. Now it's up to the Rams. They really have to win out, and it starts week in and week out. They have to go, they have to do their job. And, this game, they're not going to overlook. If they were ever going to overlook it, that loss to Baltimore pretty much sealed that deal. So it'll be really interesting to see how Sean McVay's crew bounces back. They've done it before this season. They lost to the Steelers. They bounced back and, they beat the Bears on prime time. And of course, they got absolutely decimated, by the 49ers and, Tampa Bay Buccaneers back to back. And, they went to Atlanta and they blew them out. So, we'll see. Again, on the road, I don't think the Rams have looked particularly great at home besides the one game that we went to against the Saints. But, all in all, I think this is a big opportunity for the Rams because they do have to play the Cardinals, pretty soon coming off this game. I think they play the Seahawks. So, they can cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. They just have to take care of, the first thing in their way, and that's the Cardinals this week.
Yeah, I mean, one game at a time. That's, usually a good mentality to have. So I think you're right. I think if they just go out there and focus on the Cardinals, because I know a lot of people think it's going to be an easy win. I really don't. I think that like you were going through kind of the Cardinals season, they might not have a great record, but they've really hung in there and they've fought alongside the best of them. So it could be a really intense game. I know I said that I think it's going to be a blowout of either team. I mean, if we're talking predictions, my prediction right now, which is, I guess, the only one that matters because they play tomorrow, but my prediction is I do think the Rams win. I'm going to say that the Rams win like 21-7. I guess I don't know if you would consider that a blowout, but that's my prediction. I think Jared Goff is going to look better this week than he has in previous weeks. I think that he's not going to have too hard of a time against this Arizona defense. I think Gurley is going to be more involved. I think that offensively, we're going to look a lot more fluid this game. But that's just my prediction and my hope.
Yeah. I look at this game and I think I just can't trust Jared Goff to carry this team. I can't trust Jared Goff to have like a 100% good game. I think you're going to get average 16 the rest of the year, I think, or below it. So the Rams are just going to have to do what they did at the end of last year, and they're going to have to do what they did against the Bears, and that's run the football. They went away from that early on against the Ravens. I can't really fault them because they got down so early, so quickly, and by so much that they couldn't, run the football. They completely abandoned the run, but it was kind of dictated by the Ravens. You can't let Arizona do that. Arizona, I don't think, can do that. I think that their team is talented, but I don't think this offense is just going to have its way with the defense unless the defense just quit. Like, you'll see this, like, tomorrow. You'll see if the Rams come out and they just look dead in the water, that means they quit. Like, I hate to be that guy, but, like, this defense is still top 5 in the league. I don't care how they looked against the Ravens. It's kind of along the lines of, back in the Super Bowl against, the Broncos and Seahawks. Everything is snowballed, And when it snowballed, everything's magnified in the Super Bowl. You have to keep in mind the Rams were really, that was like their Super Bowl against the Ravens. They knew they had to win that game, and they made some mistakes early on, and it snowballed, and it was magnified. So every play hurt way worse than just a regular football game because you were going against, the best team in the league. But with the Seahawks and Broncos game, the reason I want to bring that up is because, Peyton Manning, first snap of the game, goes over his head, goes in the end zone. They get, safety out of it. And then pretty much it was all she wrote from there. Seahawks really, it just snowballed. They took over and ended up being 43-8. And I'll tell you right now, if you were to play that game 9 times out of 10, I think the Broncos win. I think the Broncos offense was just unbelievable that year. And I don't think they get stopped, but it kind of goes to show you the flow of the game and why any game is not a guarantee. There's literally not one game that's a guarantee. And it's a very, crazy league. And right now, the craziest thing is, if the Rams were in the AFC, the fans, the tune of the fans right now would completely change. They'd be like, wow, we're totally going to end up in the playoffs at least. Because the AFC right now it's a dogfight between 4 teams, that have the same record as the Rams right now, or, lesser. So, I think it's definitely interesting. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind, it's either the NFC is locked up the way it is, and we're just going to look at, who gets the seeding and whatnot, or the Rams are going to steal one of those spots because there's only the Rams left. When Carolina lost against the Saints, that pretty much knocked them out, in my opinion. And then the Bears losing to the Rams on Sunday Night Football pretty much knocked them out. So I guess the good news is it's not entirely unrealistic, if I don't know who you'd root for, Seattle or Minnesota. I mean, I guess if you want to win the division, which is still not likely, but it's still possible. It's still mathematically possible, even with the 49ers, winning one game, because the Rams would have that tiebreaker over them. The Rams, the only team they can't beat a tiebreaker against, if they win out, regardless if they win out or not, is Seattle. Seattle would have to have a lesser record than the Rams. That probably means they'd have to lose out. So I think the most likely would be the 49ers. And then they would need, you'd probably want to, you'd probably have to root for Seattle to win the division then. It's kind of a weird year. I don't think we'll be talking about stuff like this again. But, that's just kind of how it's fallen in place. So I think it's a huge opportunity for the Rams, get back on track, beat the Cardinals. I picked the Cardinals on Lockdown Rams 23-13 earlier in the week. But as I've kind of, laid on this, I do think the Rams get it done. I just don't see them not. I guess it was more me just being bitter and just being like, totally felt abandoned by the Rams. But at the same time, it's just, even if Goff plays bad, I just think the Rams are going to be smart enough to like just stick with the run. I don't think that they'll allow him to completely change the course of the game. And so for that reason, I have the Rams 17-14 in a nail biter, close game on the road. The Rams will take it. It's a win, and they move on to play Seattle.
Yeah, a win's a win. They just got to go out there. They got to get the win. They just got to play better than they have been. They don't need to play like a all-star, superstar, elite, whatever you want to call it, but they just need to do their job. And I think that if they do that, I think they can win. I think it's, has the potential to be interesting. We never know. And I think, for everybody who is like kind of trying to do the playoff math and all this stuff, there's a lot that goes into it. But long story short, the Rams just need a win. So if the Rams go out and they keep winning, they could potentially end up in the playoffs. So we got to start with this week. Hopefully tomorrow they go out and beat the Arizona Cardinals.
100%. That's all they have to do. Just take care of business one week at a time. It feels a lot crazier when you're like, oh, well, we have to win out. Like if you just take it one game at a time, it's a lot easier to do. And the Rams had shown in Sean McVay's, his tenure with the Rams that they can string together wins. So like I said, get back to the running game, trust your defense, contain, don't try to, attack Kyler Murray, keep him, grounded in the pocket. And I think the Rams do end up winning this, this football game. So getting back in the win column, they'd be 7-5, and all of a sudden 7-5 looks a lot better than 6-5. However, 6-6 seems like that's the end of the year, So pretty much like we've said, if the game against the Ravens was the end of the year, the next loss would 100%, seal it and the Rams would be out of the playoffs, I think. So, but with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast, and it's been episode 263. We are going to be ramping up our coverage to, basically covering the Rams. Hopefully they make the playoffs. If not, just letting you know, we will have some Senior Bowl stuff on the way, because of course some of you are already looking at the draft. So, good for you there. We will be covering, I'll at least be at the Senior Bowl. We'll see who's at the Senior Bowl, but should be fun. So just keep that in mind. But for Jake Ellenbogen, she's Alexis Kraft. This has been the Downtown Rams podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed, and good luck to the Rams this Sunday. Horns up.